Welcome to the first ride on the Mondraker Raze RR that we are testing to see if we want to carry Mondraker. I've been on a Rise in the past. It was a large and it felt a little too big for me, so this is a medium. One of the things that impressed me the most on this bike in the past was its pedaling efficiency, especially over rougher terrain like roots and rocks. So today, riding in a spot I've never been, Devil's Den in Arkansas. So it should be a fun ride, and we'll talk a little bit about the bike along the way. So far, climbing feels pretty good. I do feel like it's efficient seated. On some of the steeper stuff, I'm noticing a little more urge to scoop forward and stand up. But when I do, it stays supportive. And it's not bouncing, bobbing, wallowing. So far, pretty darn good. Okay, so while I don't always talk about build spec on bikes, I felt like this one's a little bit different. So it's a mechanical SRAM at a $7,600 price point. Now, a lot of us think mechanical SRAM at $7,600 or whatever seems kind of weird, but what I dig about it is, unlike a lot of Shimano builds at the same price point, this comes with carbon cranks, which is pretty rad.
Yeah, you did.
So the bike feels pretty light overall. It's a pretty incredible experience riding a trail bike that weighs as little as this feels. Again, haven't weighed it yet. I'll have to wait till I get some numbers to give you the actual weight, but so far feels pretty rad. Now, the only change I have made to this bike as we ride underneath this waterfall, I put a set of birds on and some downcountry Vittoria Sierras. And that's just because I know how these ride. So yeah, riding the lighter wheels, more downcountry-ish tires still gives me the trail bike feel, but makes my day a little bit easier, which is nice. Beautiful. So when considering brands to carry in the shop, there's one main thing that the brands need to be able to do, which is ride well in our trails. And if you're familiar with the Ramba trails, there's a lot of square hit routes, square hit rocks, techie climbs, steep techie descents. And so if a bike isn't capable of having what we talk about as a progressive rear suspension, then it wants to stall out over climbs. So imagine this: we're climbing up a short techie bit, and your rear suspension, your rear tire hits a root or a rock that's 4 or 5 inches tall squarely. So what happens? Your tire needs to be able to move and articulate up and over said rock so you don't lose momentum. If the suspension isn't supportive enough, what we typically see is the suspension hits, when the tire hits the rock, the suspension will squish and sink. Then, if it's a really linear suspension design, when we go to hit the pedals, we'll compress the suspension more, which causes more of a stall out. Instead of becoming supportive and letting the power go to the ground, it's going into the suspension. So bikes we carry at West End need to have a progressive rear suspension to do the techie climbing we do in Ramba. And what I'm feeling out of the Raze and the Mondraker suspension so far is exactly what we look for. Riding here in Devil's Den, what I'm finding so far is it feels very similar to our home trails, and this bike is performing extremely well over the roots, the rocks, climbing, descending. The bike is feeling plush where I want it to feel plush, but not so soft that it's diving into its suspension. Staying supportive, giving me pedaling efficiency with anti-squat, and still, as I go over a rock or a root, it does not stall out, gives good support and puts the power to the ground. Mondraker's done a nice job with this as a pedaling trail bike. So race team member Greg was on this bike one day this week while we've been down here in the Bentonville area. Greg owns a Rocky Mountain Element and a Pivot Firebird, and he said it felt like a really nice mix between what those two bikes do well. Good pedaling efficiency like an Element, yet it still had some of that plushness as the Firebird. While it wasn't as playful for him as the Element or as planted as the Firebird, it was a very good mix of both, which it should be as a true trail bike. We should feel this plantedness as we're descending, yet if we want to take a side hit, pop off of something, even if it's slow, it should feel playful and do it well. And I feel like the bike is striking a really nice balance in the playfulness planted categories. So one of the things I take into consideration getting on a bike for the first time or second time is, does it feel natural? Do I have to do anything weird or different to make the bike feel good in its initial setup? Clock suspension I know well enough. Tuning it in was easy. When I rode the large, I did feel like I had to get way over the bars on the descents to make the bike handle the descents the way I wanted. So it was a little bit unnatural on the large for me to have to do that. So far on the medium, that's not been a thing. I don't feel like I have to get up and over. The reach feels good. Stack height feels good. Just a natural feeling bike where I don't have to do unwieldy, odd body movements that I'm not used to. And that's what I was hoping I'd get out of the medium comparatively to what I felt on the large. The large rode well. I rode it pretty fast, but I really had to concentrate on getting my body weight forward on the descents, and that has not been a thing on the medium. Just feels right. There we go. Now we're getting some speed. She's moving good. Feels good at speed. Confident. Whee! I likey. I likey. This thing feels really good on the descents. Holy cow. Like, trusting the Sierras is easy on this thing. Feels planted but playful. Like, I can pop off of little rollers really well or bounce the second time for just funsies. But if I wanna, I just set the knees and elbows, let them do some work, and the bike just stays glued. Yeah, buddy. Getting Cindy with it. Woohoo! I had to pick the back end up a little bit and clear the last rocks on that one. I'm gonna go. Whoop. So a few final thoughts on the Mondraker Raze RR that I rode while in Devil's Den, Arkansas recently. As I talk about in the video, the climbing on the bike is extremely good, yet it stays plush in the descending. And I'm looking at the way they do their suspension kinematics, that rear suspension is almost acting like a full floater, so it's compressing the suspension on both ends. That's giving me that plushness. Now, I've ridden bikes with a full float style suspension before, and plushness and playfulness were really good, but the climbing was not. That is not the case in this bike. It is a fantastic climbing bike, while seated, while standing over roots and rocks. They talk about their zero suspension system, and it really does a lot of what they say it does. The bike performed fantastically for us. I talked about how light it was in the video, and while I was running bird wheels and some Vittoria Sierra tires, that made it lighter than the stock build that we see here. The stock build that we see here came in right at 29 pounds without pedals. The bird wheel set and the Sierras actually brought it down to 26 pounds. So without tubes and lighter tires and lighter wheels, the bike lost 3 pounds of rotating mass. So if you're looking to make the bike a faster pedaler, that's going to make a huge difference. The way it's set up, it still rides really, really well. Fantastic trail bike. A couple of the downsides on the bike that I found, they're actually really minor. One of them is my heel was hitting the seat stay a little bit on the right-hand side, mostly while making moves on techie climbs, not just straight pedaling. I didn't notice it being an issue. So there's that. The other thing is it is a little bit harder to set the sag on the rear suspension because of the way the suspension layout is. It has a plastic shield over the shock to keep it clean, and that makes it just a little bit more difficult to measure the sag and to get it precisely right. Though I was able to do it and get the rest of the bike dialed in, it did ride really well. Two very small issues with the bike. Otherwise, this thing is a fantastic trail bike, and I think you could get this and it would basically do anything you need it to do. Thanks for watching, and take care.